Can Jared Goff perform outside the McVay system? Is Anthony Lynn better suited as an offensive coordinator? Can the Lions defense be any worse than it was last year, which was historically bad? Can DeAndre Swift be a top 5 running back? Let's hit the opening bell and preview the Detroit Lions.
Welcome, Kings, to this edition of the Not Your Daddy's Sports Betting Podcast and Stream presented by SportfolioKings, the future of plus EV sports betting research, where we leverage fundamental handicapping, data science, and Wall Street-style portfolio management principles to help make you a sharper, more informed bettor.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. It's Preseason 2021. We're diving into all 32 teams over the course of the summer. We'll be evaluating market expectations, providing you with our preliminary analyses and predictions as we head in to week 1. So let's talk some Lions football and start off by looking at how the Lions performed in 2020. So the team has changed dramatically over the course of the offseason, so I don't think we should really spend too much time looking back on 2020, and we'll get to what those changes are in the next slide. But, we look back on last year, and Zach, last year, going into last year, there was this contingent group within the broader betting community that was cautiously bullish on the Lions, and that included us. The Vegas estimated win totals was around like 6.5 over the course of last summer. And there was some people talking about how the Lions could maybe win the division, that the Lions ended the previous season, kind of like on an upward surge. Stafford was playing great.
Yeah, that was me. I did some of that. I'm guilty as charged. And I mean, the reason is, though, let's be honest. If we look at the chart, which if you see this on Twitch live or we put it up on YouTube, we also do a cut down of it as well. If you look at the chart from last year's kind of Lions expectation versus performance, the Lions had a lot of close opportunities early in the season, could have sent the season in a different direction for them. So they really actually were playing up to expectations besides those couple key losses early that were really tight and really close. And if that trends that way, they might end up with like an 8, 9, 10 win type season. But then, basically at the halfway point, things were just crumbling, injuries, and, no excuse, but the defense was one of the worst of all time. It was horrifyingly bad. So, it just kind of was a snowball effect, which we see that every year. There's always a team 2, 3, or 4 that, just like in a real game, when a good team gets destroyed, like the Chiefs. Chiefs got destroyed in the Super Bowl.
I wouldn't be shocked if the Bucs defensive line smothers a hobbled Mahomes, and Mahomes has his worst NFL game you've ever seen.
That's an outlier game for the Chiefs. Most of the time, that's not something that always happens. It's a rarity. So the Lions had a rare season of they were better than their record to start the season, but then by the time they had all those injuries, they already were trending down. It just snowballed out of control, and they became really bad. And then Stafford was banged up. So yeah, it happened.
And one of the things that we prefaced going into last season was and again, we were cautiously bullish. By no means we were pounding the table that the Lions were going to win the North. But we did bet the over, that 6.5 wins. And as we can see on the chart here, they go 5-11, so did not cash that over. The ATS record was 7-9, so pretty average. When we look at this chart, just a quick reminder of how to understand this. Again, the gray bars are indicating that the Lions covered the spread that week. Blue bar in this case means they didn't cover that week. The size of that bar indicates just the broader market support for that team. And the thing is here, the realized strength of schedule we can see here also 28. So the Lions didn't even play a tough schedule. And that's also quite disappointing to say that, again, the Lions had one of the worst defenses, as you mentioned, in history last year, and they didn't even play a tough schedule. So it makes sense why that coaching staff just got, the broom.
Well,
and as I was about to say earlier, was actually the one preface that we were going into last season was Matt Patricia is obviously the weak link, and everything can unravel starting from there.
And that's exactly what happened. Yeah, I mean, we tried to predict, kind of an outlier event, the Lions actually having a good season under Matt Patricia, which didn't happen. But like we said, I mean, had the first game gone their way, that might have changed the trajectory of the season. I mean, they definitely probably hit 7-8 wins. So who knows? And then
and to your point, there was actually several games throughout the season where the Lions were in position to win or cover that game, and again, bad coaching, bad decision making, bonehead plays, kind of just the history of the Lions franchise the last forever. Was really encapsulated in last year's season.
Yeah. Let's look into a little more last year's statistical numbers before we get into next season. So this just kind of, gives us a ballpark idea of where they were last year. And like we said, their offense, middle of the pack, third down conversion rate was pretty strong. And that's kind of what Stafford brings to the Rams. And we'll get to the Rams in another pod stream later. Their pass percentage was high because they're always down. Pretty low on giveaways. 20th's not terrible. So it's really the defense was the story last season, and obviously the injuries. Giving up 32 points a game, you're not going to win a lot of games. You're not going to keep a job as a defensive head coach, as we saw with Matt Patricia. Anything stick out from here? I don't think. Yeah, it's all pretty consistent. Like bad defense, it was bad defense across.
Yeah, and I don't think there's too much to take away from last season that's going to be necessarily applicable to this season as we move on to the next slide. I mean, the whole offense was basically gutted. DeAndre Swift in a relatively stable offensive line comes back. Quarterback's different, obviously. Wide receivers are different. And then the whole head coaching staff is different. So not too much to really take away. I think, just kind of representative of the defense being so bad was, one of the Lions' number 1 draft picks last year, Jeff Okudah at cornerback, was rated as one of the worst cornerbacks in the league last year. Pretty much gave up a completion nearly every time it was thrown at him. He ended up the season missing the last few games. But he, there was a lot of scouts very bullish on him. He has the size, he has the speed, he has the athleticism to be a great cornerback coming from Ohio State. So the thing is everyone's kind of so down on him already that they've kind of written him off as a bust. And I am cautiously optimistic on him this year. Again, getting that new, sweeping away that toxicity from, the past, coaching regime, getting some fresh blood in there, maybe some new perspectives. And we've already seen, for instance, coincidentally with Jared Goff, in his rookie year at quarterback, looked miserable under Fisher at the coaching staff. And then McVay came in and just flipped a switch. So, I mean, Okudah is so young that, and again, had so much potential. I feel like it's totally understandable to have a bad first season. And especially, again, given the poor coaching staff. So I'm cautiously optimistic there. And that could be a nice little bump there is if he can get this nice sophomore bump.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that's a strong take because especially considering, especially a defense. Well, I mean, both sides of the ball. You're only the strongest, unit as your weakest link. And if your defense is putrid across the board and you're a rookie and you're supposed to be the star cornerback, there's only so much you can do. You don't have any help. You're still learning. You have no one to lean on. Who are you going to lean on? Because they all suck. So there's just a level of, the odds were stacked against them, kind of like Jared Goff and Jeff Fisher. Jared Goff on Jeff Fisher's team had 0% chance to ever be a starting quarterback in the NFL. If he was on that same team with Jeff Fisher the rest of his career, I mean, in 2 years he would be gone from the NFL.
He's gone.
Like that. Yeah. That's how bad it would have ruined Jared Goff's career. So the best thing that happened to Jared Goff was getting rid of Jeff Fisher and bringing in Sean McVay, which we'll get to another time.
And actually, and to bring that now full circle, obviously Jared Goff now on the Lions. And as we kind of open the episode with the question is, can Jared Goff still be successful outside of Sean McVay? So he's operated under 2 head coaching regimes, the Fisher regime and then the McVay regime. And as we were just talking about, I mean, played miserable under the Fisher regime. So I don't know, did McVay have the magic touch and he knew exactly how to mold Goff into the quarterback that he became? Or is it now that, it was just Jared Goff getting better over time, and that was like kind of like going to be a natural, progression. I think we're going to learn a lot this season because now Goff is outside that McVay system. The ones kind of, and again, Goff outside the Super Bowl year, definitely wavered on kind of how good he actually was. Yeah. And obviously we can see McVay, wanted to ditch him and move on. So he obviously wasn't long-term enthusiastic about Goff's career, maybe saw some weaknesses that are otherwise irreconcilable. And if that is the case, I feel like those are going to be shown for the world to see this year on this Lions offense.
And he's got no wide receivers. He's got TJ Hawkinson. I mean, he's got Brashard Perriman, journeyman speedster. And he's got Tyrell Williams, an injured speedster. And then, that's basically it.
I mean, Tyrell Williams and Brashard Perriman are basically the same receiver.
Their receiving corp's terrible. So it's all going to come down to how Dan Campbell, as a first-time head coach, and Anthony Lynn, a first-time offensive coordinator, how do they operate this offense? I think their safest bet is to, rejuvenate the defense, which, they have some players if they're healthy. They brought in some secondary help, etc. So the defense is definitely going to be better this year. By how much? That's arguable, but it will be better. It's not going to give up 32 points a game. Probably closer to the 24 to 26 point mark. Check me at the end of the season if that hits. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, maybe you're just saying that it's probably not going to be the worst the league's ever seen again.
It'll probably be a touchdown better because it also spiraled into being the worst defense. It wasn't the worst defense to start the season. So it's like they have talent. If you look at the defensive roster, they do have some players that are talented, and if they just put it together, they should be. I
mean, they got Michael Brockers from the Rams in the offseason. I mean, Trey Flowers had somewhat of a down year. Jamie Collins, struggled with injuries. But, those are name brand, players that have had good seasons in the past. And then again, if you can get a sophomore jump, again, from Jeff Okudah. They also signed Quentin Dunbar in the offseason. He had a great 2019 with Washington. He's, out of the University of Florida. Signed with the Seahawks last year, started the season pretty strong, then got hurt, had some offseason troubles, and just, only ended up playing a few games. He also, he's struggled with injuries throughout his kind of career. So pretty much 2018, 2019, 2020 have all been cut short to one extent or the other through injury. But he's shown flashes, especially 2019, when actually PFF had him as rated as the second best cornerback in 2019. So he's got a high ceiling. It's just, can he stay healthy? Can he ensure that he, limits, or eliminates any off-field distractions? And if that's the case, again, he could have, again, that high ceiling, and you could have this nice 1-2 punch with Okudah and Dunbar at corner there, and could surprise, to the upside.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I think what's really going to kind of take us to the next step with the Lions is, what does the schedule look like? I think that's probably going to dictate a lot. So they start with the Niners, then to the Packers, then to the Ravens. So you're looking at a very likely 0-3 start. And this isn't hyperbolic. Anything can happen. It's the NFL. But with a whole new regime change, new quarterback, all new wide receivers. You're playing San Francisco to start this season. That's a loss. Green Bay owns the Lions, and Goff, he's got no chance. Ravens are going to eat him alive. So, I mean, if I could parlay an 0-3 to start the season and get even money, I probably would. Bears, maybe, it's a division game. Anything's possible. We got then Vikings, another division game. Bengals, okay, they might squeeze out a win there. Rams is going to be tough. Eagles might squeeze out a win. Steelers, Browns, Bears, Vikings. Okay, I mean, if they win some division games, I mean, it's tough. It's not going to be an easy year, man. I don't know. There's not a lot.
No, so we're looking at the Vegas estimated wins at 5.
Yeah.
So and we're trying to struggle to find 5 wins here. So it looks like there could be, some opportunity on the under 5. Now, this is the one thing is too. Some people are scared of lower futures numbers, and last year, and we'll come out with a note. We've posted this on Twitter as well. We've talked about how we evaluated, and projected last year's season win totals for all 32 teams last year. And one of the patterns that we had that eschewed from the broader market in our predictions was for a lot of the worst teams last year, we weren't afraid and we bet the under, and it cashed. So you look at some of the worst teams last year, they did go under the total. Bengals was like 5 or 5.5. Again, they had like 2 wins. The Lions, were one of the only bad teams that we ended up betting the over on, again, because we were cautiously optimistic. But otherwise, Panthers we went under, Jets we went under, Bengals we went under, Giants we went under. Pretty much every kind of one of the bad teams last year, they all did going under. And so with the Lions here at 5, estimated strengths of schedule is 5th. You're saying you're taking a possibly, definitely a bad team last year in transition with, it seems like this offense right now is built around, this is kind of like, hey, we need to field some players this year, so this is what we're going to go with the expectation that we're likely going to have, again, a very competitive draft pick going into next year. And let's just kind of get through this year and maybe try to evaluate as many young players as we can. So when that's your perspective, it doesn't seem like your goal is really to be winning games. And again, the schedule is so tough, it's hard to even find opportunity where there could be like some sort of like, some sort of like contextual or situational advantage where you might be able, to squeeze out some of these games. Now, from a spread perspective, that's totally different. You look at this, I mean, these are huge spreads, like every week. Now, from that, the Lions, I could definitely see the Lions going 7-10, 8-9 from a spread perspective.
I'm actually going to make a first prediction. That first, compared to the rest of, the reason I like looking at this kind of chart is we can see the game's, expected spread line across the season. How does it make sense that week 1, San Francisco's -6.5? I don't know what the current line is. And Green Bay the following week is -13.5. There's no way Niners or Green Bay is 7 points better than the Niners.
Well, I think we'll also have to evaluate too, and this is one of our offseason projects I want to get to, is how do we want to price home field advantage, if any. Now,
it depends. In the past, depends on COVID. If how many stadiums are fully operational.
Oh, they're going to all be fully operational.
Yeah, then I think there's a slight increase from last year, which I had at 0, maybe half a point. But again, I think those times have changed and are dying. I just think the sophistication of offensive minds has mitigated the problems on the road, which it just doesn't come into play as often or as easily. Yeah, but it's something to
Well, because I
consider.
know, so the reason I was going to say that was because that Niners game, is in Detroit. That Green Bay game is, in Lambeau.
It's irrelevant to especially the first week of the season. I mean, there's just the whole road home thing. We should actually run the numbers on this. The first game of the season, the last 20 years versus the rest of the NFL. Like, what's the value add the first week being at home? I mean, I would speculate it's probably not much and probably has gone down over the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. So the first week, it's all about continuity. It's all about who's had time to prepare. It's all about who's got the talent. I mean, the Niners, had a horrific season last season because of the injuries. Everyone's healthy again. Everyone's back. They believe they can win the Super Bowl. I mean, it's just like what's mind-boggling to me, and it basically the proof is in the pudding. It's in the lines right now. Is Green Bay is a ridiculous 13.5, and Niners only 6.5. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, there's no Jared Goff's not gonna I don't know. If it's a close game, it's gonna be a low-scoring game. Niners are probably gonna score 27, 30 points. I mean, are Lions gonna score 21? With Jared Goff?
Well, one of the things that I've taken some notes here and that I want to research as well is new head coaches week 1 versus spread over the last X amount of years. Mm-hmm. Because again, you're talking about, consistency, and, bringing back the same coaching staff, same players, and versus teams that, are doing the opposite of that. Because really the only stability from this Lions offense going into this year is going to be that offensive line and DeAndre Swift. And beyond that, every other piece has changed.
It's and that's what I'm saying. I mean, the Niners have strong defense. It's going to be, we've seen Jared Goff, and the Niners have played Jared Goff. So, I mean, there's no...
But beyond week 1.
Yeah, well, I think so. So based on what I'm getting at is, if you want to fade the Lions, do it week 1. Honestly, just do it week 1. No problem. As the season develops, I think the Lions are going to get more situated, more comfortable, find an identity, and they're going to go through a stretch where they cover some games and they look pretty good at times, because they figure out that what they should be doing is managing Goff. Don't let him do too much. Run the ball and try to play, 20-20. Don't let red zone touchdowns happen, and try to keep the games within 20 to 27 points and have a shot at the end. That's the game they have to play. If they get cued or try to do XYZ or Goff gets hurt, their backups aren't very good. I mean, it could be a really ugly season too. I don't know how good Dan Campbell's going to be.
Oh, this could
reminds me of Joe
terrible.
Judd's first season in the Giants except I was more optimistic about the Giants then. And I think they still only won 4 games his first season, if memory serves. Dan Campbell has that kind of vibe to me, and Anthony Lynn is offensive coordinator. Herbert got killed last year. If Goff gets killed, now the Lions have better offensive line this year than the Chargers did last year, their offensive line. But, if Goff is going to get under duress or, plays take too long to develop, I mean, he thrives on play action.
Not only does he thrive on play action, he thrives on having chemistry with his receivers, especially someone like Cooper Kupp, who basically anytime Cooper Kupp didn't play, that increased the volatility of his performance. And obviously he's not going to have any chemistry with his wide receivers to begin this year. Again, he's going to have that strong offensive line, so that does create some opportunity for outperformance. But again, I feel like the downside for this Lions team is, and especially relative to this schedule, is 1 win. I mean, because I wouldn't be surprised if Goff doesn't even make it throughout this season, because I think if it becomes clear that he's also not the future, which I honestly don't think that he is, that they just, First of all,
He's the ultimate. I think what he is. Let's categorize Goff, because this is the most important part if the Lions are going to get over 5 wins. Goff is a traditional system quarterback. He's got the arm, he's got the arm strength, he's got the accuracy. Okay. What he doesn't have is the mental clarity to lead the offense without a coach's kind of like insight, like McVay, like, remote controlling him. And he's just not that intuitive as far as being the lead person on an offense. And so I just don't see, kind of to your point,
he's not the leader.
He's not really a leader, and he's kind of.
I mean, because remember what we would see in on game days a lot is Goff wouldn't even know what play to call, and that he's listening to McVay in his headset all the way up until the headset cuts off, and beyond that, he's like a deer in headlights.
He's not,
and that's with a sharp head coach.
Yeah.
That's with a sharp head coach. Knowing how Jared Goff operates, knowing his strengths and weaknesses from having worked with him for so long, and being able to extract the best out of him. So can Dan Campbell serve that same role?
Jared Goff, and I don't know, I'm going to use this probably a lot now, it's just in my brain, is he's not an alpha. And who's an alpha? Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Big Ben, like they're just they're not afraid to go, I don't care what you think of me. I know exactly what I want to do, and I'm going to go do it. Like, look at Aaron Rodgers. Like, he knows exactly what he wants so hard. He's willing to, like, throw the Green Bay Packers aside and just not play. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm Aaron Rodgers. Like, I know what I want to do when I want to do it. Jared Goff, I mean, no offense, he's a beta. He's just going to, he just takes direction. That's what he does. He doesn't push back. Like, he doesn't like conflict. He's not willing to get in someone's face. He's passive. And as a quarterback, you can pass, but you can't be passive. That clip is going to go into the pod stream. But yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty bearish on the Lions as a whole. I don't see much to be excited about, except maybe once the market completely fades them, I think then there's some cohesion if you've spotted it. That might be a great time to hop on some mid-season / third quarter of the season Lions spread lines, etc.
So I think it's pretty easy to discern what the bear case is for the Lions.
Yeah.
How the Lions can go under 5 wins. Let's just briefly discuss how they go over 5 wins. How do the Lions make the playoffs? And probably because you need other teams getting hurt and things like this.
Yeah.
This is what I would say is Brashard Perriman, Tyrell Williams, at their best, can be legit number 2 wide receivers.
Yeah.
The thing is they're not complementary because they're basically mirror images of one another. But TJ Hawkinson,
yes,
definitely
that's true.
An elite tight end if he can also stay healthy. Again, they have the good offensive line. And again, maybe there wasn't a McVay magic touch. Maybe Goff, maybe we're looking too much into it. Maybe he's matured. Maybe, again, he's still a young guy. I mean, quarterbacks, he could still be in this league for the next 15 years.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form. So maybe we're evaluating him maybe a little bit. And maybe Anthony Lynn, is not a good head coach, but is a good offensive coordinator. And so you're actually having him not focus on game planning. You're not having him focus on, evaluating every aspect of the next team and all that stuff and being the leader of the team because that's not his strong suit. And we've seen this before in the past where certain head coaches, they weren't good head coaches, but they're good DCs or OCs or offensive analysts or whatever.
Every and Patriots OC, DC, yeah. Basically.
Yeah, and when they focus on that task at hand, then you're getting the full value out of them. So maybe, because I feel like every single thing that I've read is wow, Dan Campbell, blocking tight end, never been a head coach or had head coaching experience. He's going to suck. Look at his press conferences. He's all macho man, pounding his head. We're going to break people's knees and eat their mother's throat and things.
Well, so speaking to that, I think if you want to spin that into a good thing, I think the good thing is what you're going to get from the Lions is you're going to get at some point, now I don't think early in the season, but at some point you're going to get consistency and discipline, which is great for defensive improvement. And to cut down potentially turnovers, which means Lions are going to cover more spreads. So to your point, if you want the bullish case, I think it's pointless to go in the direction of, oh, could they make the playoffs? Like, I mean, sure, anything can happen. But I think the bullish case is really, when can I bet the Lions? And I think after the first 3 weeks, let the first 3 weeks happen. They're probably going to get their brains beat in twice out of 3 of those times. Then they'll probably lose a couple more games. But they'll start improving. And that improvement, based on how is that happening? Is it Goff getting comfortable? Are they running the game? Are they finding an identity? That's when, if you can get ahead of the market, because they're not going to want to bet 0-6 team or a 1-7 team that looks terrible. That's when, oh man, the Steelers, they're, plus 12. I mean, the Lions defense is only giving up 20 points a game. Yeah. Steelers offense is relying on Najee Harris. That's it. That's a great spot potentially, right? So I say just be patient, fade them the first 3 weeks, see how it plays out. There's no point betting them early. Like, there's just no point. You might as well just let's see what happens, because there's no way I'm putting money on them. Like, you just don't know what you're gonna get. So that's my bullish case is let them find some cohesion, find some good pricing before the market's willing to jump on them, and take advantage then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think probably one of the better places to play them, to your point, will probably be somewhere in the second half of the season, once the team has gotten more comfortable with one another. Maybe again, Goff has developed more chemistry with some of his receivers, and they can start to hone in on some of the strengths of whatever it is that they have. Again, I'm bullish on DeAndre Swift, especially behind this offensive line, especially if they don't want to necessarily overly rely on Goff. So I think DeAndre Swift can outperform. And then I personally think, Quintez Cephas is not listed as a starting wide receiver for this team, but I think by the end of the season, by the midseason, by maybe 4 weeks in, he will be. And I wouldn't be surprised if he leads the team in receiving yards, from the wide receiver perspective.
He could be the Cooper Kupp, potentially, of Jared Goff. So you might be right. Exactly. Okay. Well, any notes we want to leave our Kings of the Sportfolio with? Any kind of final sign off on the Lions?
No, I think we're pretty much, again, if we're going to make a bet on this team now, probably leaning under, collectively here, leaning under that 5. There's just, when we kind of evaluated the team from both the bull case and bear case, you're looking at the skew is certainly to the downside. I wouldn't let the 5 scare you off, because if this team does play bad, it's going to be really bad. And if they play well, they're probably going to flirt with that 5. So it's going to be 5 or 6, maybe 7. So they're not going to blow it away. It's extremely unlikely for that to happen. So
it gives you an out towards the end of the season too. So if they're sitting at 4 wins and it's week 17, 18, you might be able to bet the other way or something. Give yourself an opportunity if you want to. Which I always like to have outs when and if I can use them. So.
Alrighty, so that wraps up today's episode on the Lions. Be sure to like and subscribe. Check out Sportfolio Kings platform at sportfoliokings.com, where we have market-oriented research. We're going to have a custom market signal dashboard coming online soon. When the season kicks off, we're going to have our own in-house managed sportfolios. We have fully documented performance also on the website live today. And we'll be providing those sportfolios free to all subscribers all season long. Yeah. So like we said in the open, this is not going to be your daddy's sports betting, won't be your daddy's sports betting research. This is, a new way of looking at the sports betting market. So get out there. Let's get prepped to take your bookie to the woodshed.
And King me.